Hello, welcome to my show. I am Tulip Chaudhuri. Thank you so much for joining me. So here we are in a new year 2021. We have left behind 2020 and many trials it held for us. The biggest one, the pandemic. And we are still not done with it. Hopefully the vaccine is here and we'll be seeing better days soon. So happy new year everyone. So while we lost dear and near ones, close ones, far ones, many harder trials came with financial struggles, social, political, and I hope all of you, everyone finds a good space and peace in all the hardships you have. For me, it was also the loss of my father. He passed away on November 11, 2020. His name is Shegufta Bakht Chaudhuri. And as to all children, my father was one of my most cherished person in life. He was a guide, a philosopher, a friend, and of course, kind father. In his lifetime, above all, is the incredible human being he was. And besides that, he was a brilliant student, an efficient government servant, serving both in the former government of Pakistan and then government of Bangladesh. He served as a governor of Bangladesh Bank for 2 terms in the late 80s and early 90s. And he also served the Bangladesh government as a advisor to the caretaker government in early 90s. And before that, if we step back to the times when he was serving government of Pakistan, he served as a chief controller of imports and exports for the whole Pakistan. He was the only person who came from the eastern wing or East Pakistan of then and was honored to hold that title. Anyway, he was a man of principle and regardless of where he was serving, he did his best. And, and as a daughter, I miss him very much. And I'm going to dedicate this show to my father. So, thank you so much for joining me. And while I did not live too long with my father because I was raised by my grandparents at the one part, I wish I didn't miss that part. Anyway, rest in peace, father. So let's look into what my father was like. But he is not lost to me. Actually, his spirit lives on with me. He was born in a tiny village, but he was extremely brilliant. And he was sent to a boarding school in the town to get a proper education by his father, Dewan Mahmud Mamun Chaudhuri, and Sayyidah Zabinasa Khatun, his mother. And brilliant as he was, in 1967, that is at the height of his academic career, he did his Master of Public Administration from John F. Kennedy School of Government in 1967. And in his career life, he has served in various top positions in the government while he was serving the former government of Pakistan. And later on, 1971, when Pakistan was divided and he became a citizen of Bangladesh, he also went back and served as a government official in the government of Bangladesh. And during his career and his services, one of the most noteworthy character of him was that he was extremely honest. He was brilliant at his job. He was extremely hardworking and never ever left behind what he could carry forward for his country. So let's see, what did he look like? For a description of a person you love, that doesn't really matter. But still, I would say, my father was tall. He had dark curly hair. His complexion was fair, and to me, he often looked like a Greek. He was gentle, spoke in a consistent voice, and did not raise his voice unless it was very necessary. Polite and diplomatic, but he did not hesitate to speak up when there was a need. He was loving and kind to his dear and near ones. He loved music and played the sitar in his younger days. And while I was growing up with him, at one time in Europe where he was serving in the embassy of Pakistan, I remember those 3 years in Europe listening constantly to him playing the records, the long play records of classical music, Greek music, Indian music. And I attribute my love for music from him. He would read quietly, listen to music. By nature, he was a quiet person and loved to read books. One other thing I also got from him was the love of reading. I was fascinated also by his spirituality, his depth of understanding what is there beyond our visions, beyond our understanding of the world we see. There were times when he would say certain things or relate to something that I would see happening long after he said it. And he was also respected for this spirituality in him by those people who knew him. There was something about him untouchable that was fascinating at the same time. We respected him and loved him for he never ever used that inside within him to hurt anyone, but he would only speak up when there was a need to help someone. So my father loved to travel too, and when we were in Europe and there was so much to see in summer, every weekend he would take us to drive far out of the city, would pack a lunch, picnic lunch, and go. Would drive and drive endlessly, and when we were hungry, would sit down and eat. When he want to travel, he loved to look into the nooks and corners of cities and places, not just, like live in the hotel or anything, but and even when my kids were growing up and we lived in Bangladesh, my father, whenever he went to a different country, he would bring the most amazing gifts and tell us like which street, which corner, and he made it important that he bought it from a person usually who would benefit more. There was a tiny little monkey made of foam that he bought from my daughter from uh, Lahore, Pakistan. And he told me like I was walking along the street and there was this old man selling these handicrafts. And I just wanted to buy something from him. So I bought this for your daughter. And that added so much more value to it than, like the expensive dolls or anything. And he didn't buy inexpensive things really because he loved in simplicity. And he lived a very simple life with simple belongings. So even when he was a top official in the government of Bangladesh, just like uh, chief control imports and exports to government of Bangladesh. If somebody came to our house, they would hardly believe that it was the house of such a big official. And I took pride in living a simple life on what my father's income made it possible for him. Like at home, my mom would cook shrimps, and we would have only two shrimps per person because we couldn't afford more than that. But I never felt ashamed of that because I knew this was the honest money that my father was feeding us with. If we had only two dresses, I didn't mind. Somehow I just valued that more than being taken in by dresses and clothes and other things my friends did. So there are many things my father taught me along the way about living a good, honest, simple life and being kind and generous, but at the same time never hesitating to spend for something worthwhile like he did for our education. He never was set back when it needed to improve our life in some way. So he changed me in many ways and helped me to walk in a beautiful way in my life. So there are many things I learned from my father. Most of all, how to live a simple life, not to regret on anything that happened in the past, but to learn lessons from them. For instance, I have never seen my father waste even a single piece of paper. And it's difficult, I think, to take care of this in everyday life. But somehow he did. He was steady with ways he lived. Being an avid reader, he had lots of books at home. But he would always share them too. He had his ways of, giving books to others around him or just directing them. And our home was a place where we had just the things we needed, the chairs we needed, the beds we needed, nothing more that required any extravagance of any kind. He was a man of good choice. He loved the toiletries. I remember that. And even in his early days, he chose the top toiletries like Old Spice and the products of London like Avon and Nina Ricci for my mother. So those are some things he liked to spend his money on. And I would say that as a person, he was quiet, but in his quietness was buried the depth of the person he was. And to my children, he was my grandfather who spoke little, but when he did, he tried to teach them something as he did to us. And to his siblings, I have four aunts and one uncle that he never in his work life, although he had top position, he never did any favor to anyone outside the government rules and regulations. That too I learned from my father, to be strictly ethical, to know my moral obligations. As children, we learn from our parents, and I learned to live a good, honest life, to be 2025 to reflect on days that have gone by and to think about the days that will come. And as spiritual as he was, if I ever asked him any questions about any doubts I had, he would just say, listen to your heart. You know what your intentions are. So never doubt your connection to God. So that was the easiest way for me to question myself. There was nobody else between me and my God, and to know what to do in every step. So my father has left this world, but he has not left me or the loved ones. He lived with all of them with love and respect. So saying farewell to the year 2020 is also saying farewell to my father's presence here in this world. But may my father rest in peace, and may the year incoming 2021 find silver linings in days where will be a pandemic free world. Till we meet again, thank you very much for being with me. Thank you to Amherst Media and this great team for making my show happen. Take care. Happy New Year.